Hi Bobcats, this is Miss Lee, and today's video lesson is on dividing decimals. Please make sure that you're taking notes as you watch the video. Okay, let's do a quick review. Remember, when you have a division expression, that first number that you see is what we call the dividend. It's that total amount that you have that you're wanting to share or to split up. The second number behind the division symbol is the divisor. And the divisor can represent two things. It can represent the number of groups that you want, or it can represent the size of the groups. But that's your divisor. And then your answer is what we call the quotient. And when you set up your long division problem, the divisor, the second number in the expression, is what goes on the outside. That total amount, the dividend, goes inside the house. And the quotient, your answer, is what we put on top of our house. So this problem would look like this. The divisor, 78, goes on the outside. The dividend of 4 6800 goes inside. And then our quotient, the 0 and 600 goes on top on the quotient line. Okay, so here we go. When we're dividing with decimals, we have to remember that the divisor must be a whole number. Okay, so if your divisor is already a whole number, like in this example down here, 4 6/10 divided by 3, the divisor is the second number, it's already a whole number, then all you have to do is move the decimal point straight up to the quotient line. So when we write our problem, our divisor goes on the outside. Inside is the 4 6/10. Make sure your decimal is large enough to see it. You don't want it just to be a little speck. And because our divisor is a whole number, you bring the decimal point straight up. I always do this at the beginning before I start dividing, just to make sure that I don't lose or forget about the decimal point. So our second one, 25 divided by 8. The second number is our divisor. It's already a whole number, so we leave it alone. Okay, our dividend is 25. It is also a whole number, so it has that invisible decimal point. Go ahead and make it visible, and then move it straight up to the quotient line. And then you could do your division. But what if the divisor is a decimal number? If the divisor is a decimal number, we're going to move the decimal point in the divisor to the right until a whole number is created. This is the same as multiplying by powers of 10. You're multiplying to increase the place values. Okay, then we move the decimal point and the dividend to the right the same number of places. Okay, what you're going to do to the divisor, you have to do the same thing to the dividend. Lastly, you move the new decimal point straight up to the quotient line. So let's do our example. Okay, our first thing, look at your divisor. Here is our divisor. Okay, it is a decimal number. We need to turn it into a whole number. So we're going to move that decimal point one place to the right. And when we do, we now have the whole number 32. So that's our divisor. It goes on the outside. Okay, then you have to do the same thing to the dividend. You're not turning the dividend into a whole number. You're moving the decimal point the same number of places. We moved it one place to the right, so we do the same thing to the dividend, one place to the right. And it now becomes 46 decimal. I want to keep my decimal because I want to bring it straight up to my quotient line. And then we're ready to divide like you normally would do. So I want you to pause the video, go ahead and write the division for this next problem, and then come back and check. Okay, did you get this division problem over here? Did you notice that you had to annex a 0 in the dividend? We turned our divisor into a whole number, the 85, by moving it one place, the decimal point one place to the right. 25, our dividend, is a whole number. It has that invisible decimal point. We still have to move it, so we make it visible and then we move it one place to the right, just like we did in the divisor. And we ended up having a whole where we had to annex a 0, so it became 250. Okay, let's actually do some problems. So here we go. Our first one, look at your divisor. This is your divisor. It's already a whole number, so we don't need to move any decimal points. The divisor goes on the outside. Our dividend, the first number, goes on the inside. Decimal 45. We're not moving the decimal point because our divisor was already a whole number, so we just bring it straight up to the quotient line, nice and big. And then you divide. As you're dividing, you want to keep everything lined up nice and neat. 3 goes into 4 one whole time. I don't want to put the 1 over here. I'm not going to be sloppy and put it there because I'm getting it out of alignment. I want to keep it lined up. So the 1 goes above the 4. And 1 times 3 is 3. Subtract that from the 4, 1 remainder. Bring down the 5. You now have 15. And 3 goes into 15 5 times, which is 15. 0 remainder. We are done. So 45 hundredths divided by 3 is going to equal 15 hundredths. Okay, the next one. Okay, let's look at the divisor. The divisor is the second number. It is not a whole number, but we need to turn it into a whole number. So I'm going to move the decimal point. If I move it one place, it now becomes 9.2. Well, 9 2/10. That's not a whole number. So I have to move it again. I move it a second time, and now we have 92, which is a whole number. So the divisor goes on the outside. Since I move the decimal point 2 places to the right in the divisor, I do the same thing in the dividend. So 1 place, 2 place. The new decimal goes between the 7 and the 6. So it becomes 4, 8, 7, decimal 6. Before we divide, bring your decimal point straight up to the quotient line, and now you're ready to divide. So go ahead, I'm going to go ahead and pause the video, do your division, come back and check to see if you got the right answer. Okay, did you get 5 3/10? If you did, great job. If not, check your math. Okay, did you make a mistake with your division? Or was your decimal in the wrong place? Again, if you look at my example, you see how everything is lined up and nice and neat. For every digit inside the house, I want a digit above it on the quotient line. So even though 92 could not go into 4, I put a 0 above it. Even though 92 cannot go into 48, I put a 0 above the 8. Okay, but 92 does go into 487, so I put that 5 above that. I kept everything lined up. If you don't put the zeros here, then you might end up putting your 5 here, which means your 3 would be over here, and it would make 53 instead of 5 3/10, and that's not right. Okay, that's why we want to keep everything lined up nice and neat. All right, word problem. Wyatt had $73.85. He wants to divide this amount evenly between himself and 4 friends. How much money or how much should each person get? You always want to write your expression first. We know it's a division problem because A, we're given the total amount, and B, it tells us to divide it. So this is the amount that we're dividing. This is your dividend. It goes first in your expression, 73 85 hundredths. Now we're wanting to divide it evenly between Wyatt and his 4 friends. So if you thought it was just the 4 friends, it's not, because it also includes Wyatt. So it's actually divided by 5. Set up your long division. The divisor is the second number. Is it a whole number? Yes. So we do not need to move any decimal point. The dividend, we just write it exactly like it is, 73 85 hundredths. Bring that decimal point straight up to the answer line, nice and large. Now you divide. 5 goes into 7, 1 whole time. Subtract it, you have a 2 remainder. Bring down your 3. 5 goes into 23 4 times. I'm keeping everything lined up nice and neat. 4 times 5 is 20. Subtract 3 remainder. Bring down this 8. 5 goes into 38 7 times. Because I have it lined up nice and neat, my 7 is behind the decimal point where it goes, not in front of it. 7 times 5 is 35. Subtract 3 remainder. Bring down this 5. And 5 goes into 35 7 times, which gives you a 0 remainder. And there's your answer. So write a nice, neat little answer statement. Each person will get, or each gets, $14.77. Is that correct? It is. Okay, next problem. Mrs. Phillips bought 1 5/10 pounds of ground beef from Kroger. She paid a total of $6.75 for the ground beef. What was the price per pound? So it's telling us the total, which is telling us that this is a division problem. And we know what the total is, and we know the total goes first in your division expression. And this time we're dividing it into 1.5, into each group is going to be 1.5 pounds. Okay, so this is your expression. Let's go ahead and set up our division problem. Look at your divisor. The second number is the divisor. Is it a whole number? No, it is not a whole number. So we need to move the decimal point until we get a whole number, which in this case is one place. So it turns into 15. Because we moved it one place to the right in the divisor, we do the same thing to the dividend. The new decimal point goes between the 7 and the 5. So it becomes 67 5/10. Bring your decimal point straight up. Okay, go ahead and pause the video, finish dividing, come back and check your answer. Okay, so once you've finished dividing, you should have gotten 4 5/10. But the question is asking what was the price per pound. So we need to put our answer in dollar-cent format. So it would be $4 and add a 0 to that hundredths place. $4.50 per pound. Let's check it. And that is correct. Okay, great job, Bobcats.